Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. In my previous video I did an overview of the latest new but not really new HeroQuest expansion, Prophecy of Telor. That expansion includes a new but not really new quest, populated by new but not really new monsters, and even includes a new but not really new hero. It's that hero I want to talk about today. It is, of course, the Halfling Warlock. Or maybe it's a gnome Warlock. Or a small child Warlock, I don't know. She's probably a halfling. She's not a hobbit, that's for sure. Certainly not a Harfoot. Have Avalon Hill ever specifically stated her race? Regardless, she's a Warlock. And I say she's new but not really new because she was actually created during the Hasbro Pulse HasLab crowdfunding campaign that Avalon Hill used to launch the new edition of HeroQuest. She was a backer reward for those who put down their money at the mythic tier level, and this is the first time that fans at retail have had a chance to pick her up. Anyway, she's a little warlock, basically a magic user who draws on the power of a sinister creature, a demon, to cast spells and even transform into a terrifying demonic entity. So technically, I guess this is our first HeroQuest hero who is potentially not necessarily good. And that's something I want to drill into later in this video. First, let's take a closer look at her miniature, actually miniatures plural, and what new abilities she brings to the party. She is represented in the game with two different miniatures, cast in classic hero red. The first miniature is her true form, and it's not a bad sculpt. If you think she has a really big right hand, it's because it's all full of demon. Apparently, warlocks store their demon in their offhand. It's probably convenient, although buying gloves is a pain. Still, it's an okay miniature, but not nearly as good as the second miniature you get, which is not an alt-gender version. It is in fact an alternative gargoyle enemy sculpt cast in red plastic. You use this in your games after transforming into a demon in order to better stomp on your foes. The Warlock's stats are Attack 2, Defend 2, Body 4, Mind 5, which means she gets one more attack dice as standard than the Wizard, but one mind point less. Furthermore, like the Wizard, she is severely restricted in what equipment she can use. Basically, if the Wizard can't use it, neither can she, with one exception, her unique starting item, the Wand. The Wand is what really sets our Warlock apart, and makes her a character with the potential to really dominate in the early stages of a campaign. It lets her roll 2 attack dice against any enemy she can see, that's in melee or at range. This is only the second character we have seen who starts the game with a permanent ranged attack. The other is the Rogue Heir, who can throw daggers. The Rogue gets to throw 2 daggers per turn, but only throws 1 dice for each attack. Meanwhile, the Warlock only gets to attack once, but rolls 2 dice. That means she is going to hit 75% of the time, with a 25% chance of rolling 2 skulls. That seems incredibly good, and in the early stages of the game when you are facing a lot of goblins and orcs, she is going to do really well. And to improve her overall combat prowess, she also has access to 3 spells. The first is Fear. You cast the spell on any one monster, and that monster can only roll 1 attack dice. The spell can be broken on future turns by rolling a red dice for each of the target's mind points. On a 6, the spell is broken. The spell has no effect on enemies with no mind points. Some things are just too stupid to be scared. The second spell is Dark Wings. You may cast this on an enemy's turn after you suffer damage. The damage is reduced to 0 and you can instantly move to any unoccupied space you can see. And the third spell is Demon Form. You cast the spell on yourself and turn into the demon. You swap your miniature for the Demon Form miniature, and now you can ignore pit traps and you roll 1 additional combat dice, boosting your attack to 3, which I have to assume can still be at range. Yeah, this character starts the game with a Strength 3 ranged attack. Barmy. You can remain in your Demon Form until you take any damage. However, you can recover the Demon Form spell by killing any monster. And that's the Warlock. Now, during the HeroQuest crowdfunding campaign, Avalon Hill created 3 heroes. The Orc Bard, the Whatever Warlock, and the Druid. Of those 3 characters, the Warlock is my favourite. But the others didn't set an exceptionally high bar. The Druid, I think, is pretty badly designed and I don't like her miniature. I'm sure I will get to talk about her one day when she pops up in a retail release. And the Orc Bard? Well, the less said about him, the better. So the Warlock almost wins by
default! Woohoo! The 2 sweetest words in the English language!
However, I do sort of like the concept. Sort of. It's the execution that is slightly off to me. For a start, I worry about her character arc, or progression throughout a campaign. She starts out as a bit of a badass, throwing around strength 3 ranged attacks, but she is eventually going to hit a ceiling she can't punch through, and I feel that later in the campaign she will start to feel quite mundane in comparison to heroes with better equipment or a wider range of spellcasting options. Even that I think I could forgive. It's not easy to create a hero who remains balanced and interesting throughout a whole campaign. But what makes it worse for me is you aren't playing a halfling warlock that will occasionally let her inner demon wreak havoc on her foes. You are playing a demon who will occasionally revert into a halfling. Because why wouldn't you immediately cast demon form on yourself? From turn 1 you are going to be attacking with 3 dice and ignoring all pit traps. You are just going to stomp around whomping things. And yes, eventually you will take a hit, you will lose a body point and revert to the halfling form. So what? Pop a goblin with your wand and you immediately regain your demon form spell and you can once again become the beast. There is absolutely no penalty for being the demon. And there should be a penalty for being the demon. You're a good guy, right? I have seen numerous complaints about the Warlock online, but a particularly common one is that she doesn't feel like she fits in HeroQuest, and there are 2 main reasons. One is that she is a halfling. Probably. I don't have an issue with that. Classic HeroQuest was set in the old world, there were halflings there. This modern version is set in a generic fantasy land with slight leanings towards D&D. Halflings or other little folk don't seem out of place to me. Plus, it's a fun twist for the character. It's funny that the little pint-sized hero can transform into the hulking brute. But, it's only funny if you lean into that, if you embrace that dichotomy and work the duality of the character into the design more cohesively, which I don't think has happened here. The other main reason I have seen is because, well...
Are we the baddies?
Until recently, looking at you, Spirit Queen's Torment, HeroQuest was rather clear-cut. There were goodies and baddies, and you knew where you stood, and that worked for the game. Even the barbarian fell into the noble savage trope. But now we have this character who is bonded with something clearly evil. I mean, she's using dread magic for crying out loud. Look at that fear spell again. That is exactly the same dread fear spell Zargon has been throwing at the heroes. And HeroQuest is littered with cautionary tales of what happens to those people who decide to mess with dread magic. Now, we don't know how our Warlock came to be joined with her patron. We don't know if she sold her soul for power. Perhaps she is an unwilling host. Clearly, the designers wanted to imply the demon feeds off death. You recover your demon form spell every time you kill something. So they have approached the design from that angle, to a degree. So perhaps she is being forced to do horrible things for the demon so that it will eventually release her from whatever pact is in place. Maybe she just has to keep feeding it so it doesn't kill her. But if that's so, I feel like the character is built all wrong, because it shouldn't be an easy choice to turn into a demon and murder people. There should be a punishment. And as we've already established, there is no punishment for being the demon. The only punishment comes from taking damage while in demon form, at which point you revert to the halfling form. The halfling form is the punishment. And then as a halfling, you purposefully murder an enemy just so you can slip back into that cozy demon form again. Also, by the way, the whole way the transformation works seems a little at odds with the intent. If you wait until there are monsters on the board to transform, you are wasting a turn of combat, as you can't cast the demon form spell and attack in the same turn. So the game is actually encouraging you to turn into the demon when there are no threats present. And then, when the threats do turn up, as soon as you take as little as 1 body point of damage, the demon disperses and you have to deal with the rest of the fight as a halfling. It all seems almost backwards. Now, I'm not saying I have the perfect solution, and I am no games designer, but if I was going to design a Warlock hero for HeroQuest who draws her power from a demon, I would make it that the demon form gives her significant bonuses, but there is some kind of cost that means you will only use it in dire circumstances. It would be interesting to create a balance between her good nature and the unleashed demonic force. I've actually thought about loads of different ideas. Double-sided spell cards with light and dark sides that flip when you use them and therefore cannot be used again until you change form. Or the demon taking control of the Warlock when she falls unconscious or is reduced to 0 body points. I really did quite like that idea that you play as a halfling imbued with magic from a demon, but when you actually die, the demon takes over and then all hell breaks loose. But HeroQuest likes to keep things simple, and it's really not easy to create something elegant that's true to the design ethos of the game. However, I think I would maybe change demon form so it wasn't a spell, but instead a free action that you can take at the start of your turn for the cost of 1 mind point. This cost would represent the Warlock attempting to keep a sense of self as they are overtaken by the demonic power. The demon craves violence, so while in demon form, if you do not cast a spell or make an attack, successful or otherwise, during your turn, you revert to your halfling form at the end of that turn. That way the demon is at your fingertips when you need it, but you will change back into a halfling whenever there are no enemies to fight. Now, I've come up with that pretty quickly, so I'm not suggesting that's it, that's the solution, but hopefully it at least illustrates where I'm coming from with this character. I feel that if you are going to call on a demon, especially if you're supposed to be a hero, there has to be some kind of consequence. Being the demon shouldn't be the norm, being the halfling shouldn't feel like the punishment, and your heroic character shouldn't be hunting down and killing the weakest monster they can find to get their next demonic high. But that's just some food for thought. Let me know your opinions in the comments, because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.